morning, friends, and welcome to today's Light and Darkness reading. I don't usually read quite so early in the morning, but, I just usually read in the time of the day that's most convenient for me. I figure that anybody who's keeping up with all of this can catch up. All right, so, continuing. We've got Chapter 24, Private Conversations. When Kinar said, "It was not very nice of him to outsmart you," Brach replied, "Careful, Kinar. For the moment, I'm still in charge of this army." "Don't be afraid, General," Kinar said unapologetically. "You have won dozens of battles, and this is your first loss. I'm sure the Dachmanan will not remove you for one mistake. It would not be wise when dealing with a man of your caliber." "You seem to think you know the mind of the Dachmanan," Brach replied. "Yes," Kinar said. "That is why he made me your counselor." "He couldn't dig a trap like that in the last few months," Brach said, half to himself, half in frustration. "How could I know it was there?" "You couldn't," Kinar replied. "That is why I advised caution. I imagine that trap has been around for quite a long time. Alva Dene is the last in a long line of military geniuses. They clearly planned ahead." "Well, they were defeated by the Hurons, so despite this setback, Dachmann will destroy them." "You need to have details before you draw lessons from history, General. Technically, Al-Salah Dene was never defeated by Diaphon the Conqueror. Diaphon offered a peace deal because he could not defeat Al-Salah. Philon III had much less stomach for war than his general." "You are rather free with your corrections, Kinar." "Yes, I am. I have tried to be diplomatic in saying this, but if you had listened to me, you would not have had your best cavalrymen destroyed, not to mention 20 Dachmanim. I think you need to listen to me now, or next time you might lose your post." "It is the decision of the Dachmanim whether to wear armor. That was their mistake. They feel they can instill terror better without it." "Yes, but you have authority over them as general. They must wear armor from now on." "And?" "The key to our victory lies in superior force of numbers. We must use this, but wisely." As Brach and Kinar continued to discuss plans for defeating Lassania, Alva personally oversaw the clearing of the ravine. Pensor was with him. It was a difficult job, but they had the necessary equipment nearby. Most of the men and horses had died in the fall, but there were a few that had been near the top, well protected from the spikes by those below. Some of these had survived, though most had serious injuries. Alva sent a messenger to inquire whether Dachmann wanted their dead, but they did not. So Lassania was left to bury the enemy. Luckily, they had been so successful in this battle as to not sustain a single casualty, so the enemy were the only burials needed. "It's an ugly business," Alva said to Pensor. "Nobody invited them," Pensor replied. "I know. Alva said, and we did the right thing, but it's an ugly business anyway. Hope's first duty, once she could get past the cheering crowd, was to see the Lacinian wounded. Many of the horsemen had taken wounds during their ride. There were plenty of healers to dress and stitch the wounds, but she went to each man and placed her hand on his wound, which took away the pain and sped up the healing process. After she was done with her own men, she did the same with the Dachmonian survivors from the chasm. Alva had insisted that the men came before the horses. Hope had replied that it was the men's fault, not the horses. Alva had simply said, "I know, but men come before horses." The Dachmonian injuries were mostly broken bones and other effects of a dangerous fall. The healers did what they could, and Hope removed their pain and started their bones and bodies to healing more quickly. Some of the men seemed afraid of her at first, but it was very clear she would do them no harm. Hope had never experienced men like these before. The only way to describe them would be to say that they were evil. Some of them seemed captivated by her presence, and it seemed like there might be hope that they could be turned toward the light. Others were simply filled with darkness, and though she helped heal their injuries, they clearly felt nothing but contempt in her presence. As is often the case, the cavalrymen came from the higher strata of Dachmonian society. After she saw to the men, Hope was finally allowed to care for the injured horses. Though Dachmonians have no love for animals, these were well cared for horses because of their use in warfare. Still, Hope could tell they had never experienced any human love. This she was able to communicate to them, in addition to removing their pain and doing what she could to help their injuries. Some were injured beyond recovery, and it broke her heart to think they would have to be put down. But with Hope's remedial power, many would recover and be of use to Lacinia. Bonson had had quite a day. Though there were many contributors to the day's victory, he had led the charge. Throughout the afternoon and evening, he was called upon again and again to tell about what his charge was like. He constantly gave credit to Alva's plan, Hope's power, and the archer's precision, but to most of the fighting men, he was the hero of the day. It had been a long time since Bonson had actually enjoyed this kind of attention. Grieved as he had been with regard to Hope, today he was his old self again, the pride of the Twin Kingdoms. While Bonson talked with various men, Hellel asked for a private audience with Alva and Pinsor in his tent. "It was a good day," he began. "A well-executed plan." "Thank you," Alva replied. "It was my father's plan, modified to account for the power of the Dachmonim and Hope. Of course, I know that is not what you called us here to talk about." "Of course," Hellel replied. "I know it has been a long day, so I will get to business. Today you used yourself as bait, but I know that soon you will fight. If you fight, you may fall. We need to discuss succession of authority if and when that occurs." "Naturally," said Alva. "Of course, I have many fine generals, including both of you, who would be excellent candidates. I know that you are mature men, and I trust that no man's pride will become involved after I share my decision." "I hope men of our age and experience can put such things aside," Hellel said. Pinsor nodded. "If I fall," Alva continued, "Bonson will take my place unless he falls." Hellel nodded knowingly when Alva said this, but Pinsor looked a little shocked. Once he recovered, he said, "Truly?" "Truly," Alva said in response. "I agree," said Hellel. I will write out a succession of leaders after this and give it to you, Lord Hellel, for safekeeping. For now it suffices to say that Lord Bonson is my next successor. I do not wish to tell him this just yet. Perhaps it is better to wait until after my demise. Should that occur, in that case, it will fall to one of you to tell him, whoever seems more fit at the time. Both men agreed, and Alva and Pensor left Hellel to his thoughts and plans. Pensor had seemed bothered all day, and after this meeting he was silent and seemed angry. Pensor, Alva said, addressing him, of course you would have been my natural choice to lead the army, but I have important reasons for my decision. I'm not upset about not being named, Alva, but I would think that Hellel would be the natural choice. Both you and Hellel have age and experience, but Bonson is a symbol that men can follow. He stirs the kind of feelings in their hearts that we need to win this war. Even if he falls, his death will be great and will become a symbol for the future. And you're sure he can be trusted? Yes. You aren't? During our journey, I was always watching him, said Pensor. At first I watched him around Hope, because I didn't feel quite comfortable the way he looked at her. When it became clear that Hope was falling for you, I watched him around you, because he seemed like he'd as soon give you a knife in the back and look at you. He's never seemed trustworthy to me. Sometimes I worry he's carrying out some scheme for his father to make you fail. I can't help but wonder if he still has his mind on Hope, and the barmaid is just a ruse to throw us off. That would be quite a scheme, Alva laughed. You think Dachmann would really deliberately give up their best cavalrymen and 20 Dachmanim just to throw me off? Well, what he did today certainly doesn't fit that theory, Pensor conceded. But that don't mean he won't serve himself the first chance he gets. Maybe he's got the same idea as you, and he's just waiting for his chance to take charge. And if you fall, maybe he'll think he's got a second chance at Hope. I know you have my interests in mind, Pensor, Alva replied, so I won't rebuke you. Let me just say this. I believe I've known a few men who were as good as Lord Bonson. I don't believe I've ever known a better one. That's quite a statement coming from a Dene, said Pensor angrily. Yes, it is, Alva replied. You're the Dene, Pensor said with some sarcasm. Of course I count you among those men. If you think that's what's bothering me, you've lost your mind, said Pensor, lowering his head. Pensor, look at me. Pensor did not move. Pensor, look at me, Alva repeated. This time Pensor looked in his eyes. Pensor, who was my father? Salah Dene. And who was my father's father? Salah Dene the 25th. Pensor, my father was like a perfect, polished sculpture of what it means to be a man. Pensor nodded. Do you know why? Alva asked. 'Cause he was a Dene. Yes, but more to the point, his father was a Dene. My father was everything a man should be because his father taught him everything a man should be. He was like a perfect polished sculpture because from his birth his father had sculpted and polished him. And the Denes have been doing that with their sons all the way back to Mancher. I make no claim to be the man my father was, but whatever I am because he sculpted and polished me. He taught me truth, honor, and integrity, and he modeled it so I could see what it looked like. Do you understand what I'm telling you?"
"I do," said Pincer.
"Well," Alva continued, "you were with us at Philon's Hall in Grenvere. You saw what Bonson's father was like. Bonson is like a sculpture with no sculptor. A block of marble that exploded, and there was a perfect sculpture. If it wasn't polished when we first encountered it, how could we blame him? He had no one to teach him."
"Well, I see what you're getting at, anyhow."
"What do you think my father would have done with Lord Bonson if he had met him?"
"He would have slapped him around."
Alva smiled. "Yes, he would have. And then?" Pincer did not answer, so Alva pressed him. "And then?"
"He'd have made a man out of him."
"Yes, he would have. And I can see my father's eyes lighting up at having a mold of clay like that to work with. Bonson is the perfect warrior, and it's not because he can fight so well. Deep down, he values truth, honor, and integrity. It just took a lot to bring it out. I believe it has been brought out. You're a warrior. You must understand what it took for him to throw his sword at my feet. I believe we can trust him to do what is right to the best of his abilities."
"I hear you," Pincer said. "I just hope he won't let you down."
"He won't."
"You're the Danae."
Pincer had no anger this time. "Thank you, my friend. And if I fall, I need you to serve him as you would serve me."
"That's asking a lot."
"But if it's really what you're saying, I'll do it." "It's really what I'm saying." Pincer nodded and they went their separate ways for bed. As Alva and Pincer parted ways for the night, Bonson was headed to his own tent. He had had a long day that began with successful combat and ended with celebration at which he was the center. A more enjoyable day for a man of his age and situation would be difficult to imagine. When he came to the tent, he found that Svarian was sitting in front of it, polishing his armor. He had seen very little of Svarian that day, and was glad to see him now. "Good evening, my friend," Bonson said. "You really don't have to polish my armor."
"I wanted to do something to honor you," Svarian replied. "It was a magnificent ride today."
"Well, thank you very much," said Bonson. "Why don't you come inside and we'll have one last drink before I nod off?" They entered Bonson's tent. Inside were his bed, a small round table with 2 chairs, and on the table was a bottle of red wine that Salia had sent for him to help him remember her in all her duties. Bonson poured 2 glasses. Svarian held up his glass and said,
"To Lord Bonson, the greatest warrior in the kingdom."
"Well, not quite the greatest," Bonson replied. "But I thank you for the compliment."
"I wonder," Svarian said thoughtfully. "When Alva Danae won your duel, as I hear it, he won by a lucky chance."
"Alva Danae almost always seems to win by a lucky chance, Svarian, but he always wins, so a smart man can see that it isn't just luck."
"He seemed content to let you do the real warrior's work today."
"It was his plan, Svarian."
"Yes, but it was your actions."
"Mine and a lot of other people's. Anyway, I guarantee you Alva could lead a charge as well as I could. He was making a point today. Our victory does not depend on him. If he falls, it will be important for Dachmann and our own men to know that. He will fight when the time is right.
As you will, Sverrian replied. I just can't help but wonder if the army would do better if you were leading it.
Bonsson was quite taken aback. That borders on treason, Sverrian, he said after a moment.
Well, lately it seems like treason is acceptable in this kingdom if it serves the greater good. We call Tyagon a hero for it, and after today, I think it might be the best thing for the kingdom if you led the army.
Bonsson jumped to his feet, knocking over the table. He reached and grabbed Sverrian's shirt with both hands and jerked him to his feet and said with great intensity, Sverrian, swear loyalty to Alva Dene this moment.
I'm loyal to you, Sverrian said. Isn't that enough?
No, it isn't. Swear loyalty to Alva Dene now, or I will kill you as a traitor immediately.
Of course, if that's what you wish, I consider you my master. I swear to serve Alva Dene as long as he or I live.
On pain of death?
On pain of death.
I am told that no Aknanian has ever broken his word.
That's right,
Sverrian replied,
and none ever will.
Bonsson released his grip. Then I can trust you again, he said. I'm sorry if I was too extreme with you, Sverrian, but you must understand. I've spent most of my life living for my own glory, and it almost drove me to fall on my sword. I can't go back there. I won't.
I understand, and I apologize for my error. It won't happen again. You serve Alva Dene, and I serve you. I will serve Alva Dene without question from henceforth. You have had a long day, master, and I will let you sleep.
Sverrian left, but Bonsson did not sleep that night. For the entire day he had been battling the very idea Sverrian had suggested, and now it haunted his thoughts. Was he right to follow Alva? Should he be in command? Had Alva beat him by nothing more than luck? Bonsson was angry at himself for these thoughts, but he could not shake them. He began to rapidly pace around his tent. Unwanted thoughts began to flood his mind. He remembered the pain he felt the night Alva asked if Hope loved him, and she said, "No, but please don't kill him." He remembered running away from the campfire, throwing himself down and sobbing with his face on the ground. Then he felt once again the seething hatred for Alva that had enabled him to cope with his grief. As he paced around his tent, he began to flail his massive arms around, talking to himself under his breath and occasionally punching the air. The desire to fight Alva, which he had not felt for weeks, flooded back within him. He pictured himself insulting Alva and challenging him. He even pictured himself insulting Alva's father just to make him fight. Like a flash, he suddenly remembered his great accusation to Alva the day after Hope's stinging revelation. "You stole Hope from me!" Hope. What about Hope? He thought. He hated Alva because Hope loved him. No other real reason. But he seemed to be missing something in all of this. Did he, Bonsson, still love Hope in that way? Suddenly his angry, sweaty, red face subsided into a smile. Salia. He loved Salia. Why was he angry at Alva? Why had he slipped back into these old thoughts? He smiled and laughed to himself as he remembered the moments he was treasuring. You'd almost be handsome without that scraggly beard. He met you first. My horse is brown. You really think it's that easy? Before first light, he got up and walked toward Alva's tent. When he reached it, he stood at the door in silent thought. Just before the sun came up, Alva came out and was surprised to find him there. "What is it, brother?" Alva asked. Bonson hesitated for a moment, then said in a loud whisper, "Last night, a soldier suggested that I could run this army better than you." "And you think he's right?" Alva asked. "No, I told him that was treason and made him swear allegiance to you on pain of death." Alva smiled. "So why are we talking about this so early?" "I didn't want you to hear anything like this and think I would participate in it." "If someone had suggested that, I would not have believed it," said Alva. "You have my trust. If I were concerned, I would come to you, but I wouldn't be concerned. I was very proud of myself yesterday." "You had every reason to be. It was a great victory." "The truth is," Bonson said, "for a minute, I did think I should be the one running the army. For some minutes, actually. A lot of my old thoughts flooded my mind, and it concerns me about the position I'm in." "We all have the wrong thoughts sometimes, brother. The question is what we do with them. You've only strengthened my trust by coming to me about this." "Alva," asked Bonson, "given our colorful history, why do you show me such grace?" "Lord Bonson, sometimes there is a moment when a man realizes he was wrong, and that moment changes everything." "Did your father say that?" "No." "Then can I attribute the quote to you?" "If you like." "What was the moment? May I ask?" "Yes, you may. It was the moment when you were the first to volunteer to stand with me at the dry lake." "Pincer was the first volunteer." "No, Pincer obeyed. You volunteered." "I wanted to die." "No, you didn't. You may have thought you did, but you didn't. A man with a death wish does not fight the way you fought. You fought for Hope even though you knew she did not love you. I'd never given you a chance, Bonson. You had a maladjusted attitude, and you were a Huron. I grew up hating Hurons. My own stubbornness and prejudice had kept me from looking deeper until then. I didn't see what was inside of you before that, but I do now. But I would not shake your hand before leaving Lasse Creston." "We all need to grow, Bonson. You needed time to become what you really are. The more you grow, the more I could see that I could not wish for anything better." Bonson was moved to tears. He wanted to say something, but could not find the words. Alva put his hand on his shoulder to let him know he understood. Then he said, "So do you have anywhere pressing to be?" "Not for a bit," said Bonson. "Then what say we drop the gab and have us a sword fight?" "Certainly, master," Bonson said with a smile. The two men found a place to practice the sword for the next hour before the soldiers would wake up.